Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the fascinating world of Aztec chocolate. Yes, the kind you probably enjoy during movie nights, but with a twist. Imagine this: you're sitting in the bustling heart of an ancient Aztec city surrounded by towering pyramids, the scent of spicy cacao in the air, and the soft hum of ceremonial chants. It's a world where chocolate wasn't just a treat, it was believed to have the power to heal, empower, and even communicate with the gods. You probably won't survive this. Well, not without a hearty cup of bitter, spiced chocolate to keep you going. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. It's always nice to know how far my sleepy stories are traveling. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Aztecs, an empire built on conquest, culture, and intricate religious rituals, had a somewhat peculiar and very serious relationship with chocolate. The cacao bean, derived from the seeds of the cacao tree, was considered not just a luxury, but something far more valuable. In fact, it was revered as a gift from the gods, a product so sacred that it was used in everything from religious ceremonies to medical treatments. So, while you may associate chocolate with relaxation, indulgence, or even a quick energy boost, the Aztecs believed it could heal ailments, enhance vitality, and even make you invincible in battle. But let's take a moment to appreciate how different the chocolate you enjoy today is from the Aztec version. Imagine sipping a thick, frothy drink made from ground cacao beans, mixed with chili, vanilla, and maybe a few other interesting ingredients. No milk, no sugar, just pure, raw bitterness with a kick of heat. This was the chocolate the Aztecs swore by, not just for its flavor, but for its powers. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs truly believed in its healing properties, or if it was more of a cultural symbol. But one thing's for sure: chocolate was no ordinary commodity. It was an experience, a sacred drink that could bring you closer to the divine. But before we get too carried away, let's take a step back and look at what cacao actually meant to the Aztecs. The cacao bean wasn't just food, it was life. It was wrapped in mythology, adored by the gods, and played a central role in Aztec society. The fact that chocolate was integral to so many aspects of Aztec life gives us a glimpse into the importance they placed on this unassuming bean. From the elite warriors to the humblest farmers, everyone had a role in the cacao economy. Chocolate's divine status is often attributed to Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, who, according to legend, brought cacao to the Aztecs as a gift from the heavens. The myth surrounding cacao is rich, complex, and filled with the promise of health, wealth, and divine favor. It wasn't just the taste of chocolate that captivated the Aztecs. It was the idea that this bitter drink could elevate the soul, protect the body, and even ensure success in battle. If you've ever had one of those nights where you felt like a good cup of cocoa could solve all your problems, imagine how the Aztecs must have felt when they sipped their ceremonial cacao, believing it could cure all manner of ailments and improve their physical prowess. But what did these healing powers really look like in practice? Well, it turns out the Aztecs had quite a bit of faith in the medicinal properties of cacao. They used it to treat everything from nausea and fatigue to wounds and even heart problems. Yes, you heard that right. The same chocolate you might use for a pick-me-up was once believed to be a remedy for a range of health issues. Some even believed that chocolate could cure heart problems by acting as a stimulant. That's a bit of a stretch by today's medical standards. But back then, chocolate was a go-to treatment for many physical ailments. The obsession with chocolate in Aztec culture wasn't just about drinking it, though. Cacao beans were so valuable that they were used as currency. That's right, people literally paid for goods and services with chocolate. In a society where gold and silver were less common than you might think, cacao was the true treasure. You could buy food, pay for services, or even trade for land using cacao beans as your currency. If you wanted to impress someone or show respect, a fine bag of cacao beans would do the trick. Imagine if today's world used chocolate as money. Would you spend it more sparingly or binge buy with your sweet stash? Historians still argue whether cacao was genuinely seen as a universal medicine or if its mystical properties were just part of a larger cultural mythology. Some say that the Aztecs were simply ahead of their time, understanding the benefits of cacao's natural compounds long before modern science caught up. Others argue that the Aztecs might have been a bit too enchanted by their gods' promises, with their faith in cacao possibly overshadowing its actual effects. Whatever the case, the Aztecs treated their cacao with utmost reverence, and its place in their world was undeniably sacred. As we continue our journey through this rich history, keep in mind that the Aztec approach to chocolate was vastly different from how we experience it today. There was no Hershey's or Lindt to tempt you, just pure, unadulterated chocolate with a touch of heat, a splash of spice, and a lot of belief in its healing properties. So sit back, relax, and let the world of Aztec chocolate unfold around you, one sip at a time. The Aztecs were masters of innovation, particularly when it came to the things they valued most. And cacao, their prized commodity, was high on that list. But the obsession with cacao went far beyond a simple taste preference. It was ingrained in their culture, religion, and economy. If you were living in an Aztec city, chances are you'd encounter cacao in some form almost every day, whether it was in a ceremonial offering, a trade transaction, or a health remedy. It was as valuable as gold, if not more so. Imagine being so enamored with something that it became woven into the very fabric of your existence. The Aztecs didn't just drink chocolate, they worshipped it. Cacao was so revered by the Aztecs that it was linked to some of their most important gods. The most significant of these was Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, who, according to legend, gifted cacao to humanity. It's said that Quetzalcoatl descended from the heavens and bestowed cacao upon the people, offering them not just a delicious treat, but a divine gift that would help sustain them physically and spiritually. The god's association with cacao was so strong that the Aztecs even considered the bean to be a symbol of his presence among them. It wasn't just a casual gift either. The Aztecs saw cacao as something sacred, a product of the divine that held power beyond its flavor. In fact, cacao was so closely tied to Quetzalcoatl that it became a ritual object. Priests and shamans used cacao in various ceremonies, believing that it could invoke the gods' favor. The bitter drink was prepared with the spices like chili, vanilla, and even ground flowers to make it potent and full of meaning. In these rituals, cacao wasn't just a treat for the body, it was nourishment for the soul. In the everyday lives of the Aztecs, cacao was a major source of nutrition. Imagine walking through the bustling marketplaces where cacao beans were as common as currency, used not only to buy goods, but to pay taxes, salaries, and even soldiers. Yes, cacao was money, actual currency. This probably sounds a little wild in the modern world, where we rely on paper bills or digital transactions. But back in the Aztec Empire, cacao beans were considered a medium of exchange, as valuable as precious metals. So, if you wanted to buy a meal, a new outfit, or even a piece of land, you'd do so with cacao beans. But cacao wasn't just used to buy things. It was also used in highly specific and sacred ceremonies. If you were a high-ranking individual in the Aztec world, you might drink chocolate as part of a special ritual designed to strengthen the bond between you and the gods. This wasn't your typical cup of hot cocoa. No, this was a complex, ceremonial drink made from finely ground cacao, water, chili peppers, vanilla, and sometimes even crushed flowers or other ingredients that added both flavor and symbolic significance. It wasn't just about satisfying your taste buds. It was about connecting with the divine and reinforcing the power structure of Aztec society. Of course, not everyone could enjoy this sacred chocolate. In a society as stratified as the Aztec Empire, drinking cacao was reserved for the elite, particularly the nobles, priests, and warriors. The average citizen likely drank a far less decadent version of cacao, one that was bitter, plain, and far from the spicy, indulgent drink served at religious ceremonies. For most Aztecs, chocolate wasn't just a luxury. It was an integral part of their daily life. It was the drink of the gods. After all, historians still argue about the exact role cacao played in Aztec society. Was it really a sacred offering? Or was it simply a highly prized commodity? Some scholars believe that the Aztecs' reverence for cacao was rooted in their understanding of its nutritional value. Cacao was rich in nutrients like magnesium and antioxidants, and it's possible that the Aztecs recognized these health benefits long before modern science caught up. Others suggest that the drink was more symbolic, a tool used by the elite to reinforce their status and connection to the divine. Either way, one thing is clear. Cacao was a powerful symbol of wealth, power, and religion in Aztec culture. Imagine for a moment that you're an Aztec warrior preparing for battle. You've trained for months, and now, as part of your pre-battle ritual, you're handed a cup of ceremonial chocolate. It's thick, rich, and full of spices that heat your body from the inside out. As you sip, you can almost feel the power of the gods flowing through you, giving you strength and focus. You're ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead, whether it's a physical battle or a spiritual one. This is no ordinary beverage. It's a divine elixir that ties you to something much bigger than yourself. But there's more to the story. While cacao was used for its perceived physical and spiritual benefits, it also had a very real role in social and economic life. Cacao was not just something the elite enjoyed during ceremonies. It was essential to the functioning of the entire empire. It played a role in trade, politics, and even diplomacy. If you wanted to make a good impression on a visiting dignitary, what better way than to offer them the finest cacao beans? Cacao wasn't just about food, it was about power. It was the Aztec equivalent of giving a golden goblet to a guest at a royal banquet. And let's not forget the role cacao played in the everyday lives of the common people. If you were an Aztec farmer, chances are you would have grown cacao as part of your livelihood. The demand for cacao beans was so high that farmers who produced them became vital to the economy. The cultivation of cacao wasn't without its challenges, though. It required careful attention to the land, skillful harvesting, and proper processing to ensure the beans were of the highest quality. Cacao wasn't something you simply plucked off a tree. It was a product of hard work and dedication. As we reflect on this, we can't help but marvel at how the Aztecs understood the importance of cacao, not just as a commodity, but as a cultural and spiritual force. In a world where so much of life was driven by the need for survival, cacao was something that transcended the physical. It was a symbol of life itself. And that's why, when we sip our modern-day chocolate drinks or nibble on a chocolate bar, we're not just indulging in a sweet treat. We're connecting, in some small way, to a centuries-old tradition that saw chocolate as something sacred, something that could heal and empower. Chocolate in Aztec society wasn't just a treat for the tongue. It was something far more profound. Imagine it, a thick, frothy drink that made the very air around you feel richer, the world a little more alive. This wasn't the sweet, milky version of chocolate that we're familiar with today. No, this was a complex, bitter brew made with cacao, water, chili peppers, and sometimes even vanilla and flowers. It wasn't designed to soothe your sweet tooth. It was made to jolt your senses, to elevate you, to make you feel connected to the divine. This chocolate, you see, was sacred. The process of making this chocolate was as intricate and sacred as the drink itself. To the Aztecs, the preparation of cacao was an art form, and it involved many steps. First, the cacao beans had to be carefully harvested, roasted, and ground by hand. After that, they would be mixed with water and spices, usually chili, to give the drink its characteristic heat. The drink would then be poured from one vessel to another, creating a frothy top, which was highly prized. This foamy layer was considered to be the drink's most sacred aspect, the part that held the most power. The froth, in their minds, was where the gods' blessing lay. Imagine sipping that drink, the froth tickling your lips, the heat of the chili warming your chest. It was no wonder the Aztecs believed it could heal and empower. But this wasn't a drink you'd casually enjoy while lounging around. No, Cacao had its place in Aztec society. It was consumed primarily by the elites, the priests, the warriors, and the nobles. You wouldn't find commoners drinking it on a regular basis, as cacao was simply too valuable. This exclusivity lent cacao an almost mystical status. Only the chosen few could experience the divine powers it allegedly held. And of course, cacao's sacredness wasn't just about consumption. It was woven into the very fabric of Aztec religion and politics. In Aztec ceremonies, cacao played a crucial role. It was often offered to the gods as part of religious rituals, symbolizing the bond between the divine and the mortal world. Cacao was used in sacrifices, with priests pouring the chocolate into ritual vessels as a gesture of respect and devotion. The act of offering cacao to the gods was meant to invite blessings, whether that was in the form of a bountiful harvest, military success, or good health. Cacao wasn't just a gift, it was an essential part of the spiritual landscape, a means of communication with the divine. And it wasn't just the elite who believed in chocolate's divine qualities. Everyone did. While cacao may have been consumed mostly by the upper classes, its influence spread throughout Aztec society. The idea that cacao was connected to the gods, that it had magical properties, was a belief shared by many. Even the common people understood cacao's importance, though they may have had to settle for a more basic version of the drink. It wasn't just the rich who revered it. It was a shared cultural symbol of divine favor and power. This shared belief in cacao's sacredness helped to solidify its place in Aztec culture. The more you consumed, the more you felt connected to the spiritual and political elite. The more you drank, the closer you were to the gods. Imagine then the power that cacao held, not just as a currency or commodity, but as a symbol of divine grace. To be given cacao was to be elevated, to be acknowledged as worthy of the gods' attention. It was the ultimate sign of respect, an offering that said, "I honor you, I recognize your power." The connection between cacao and power wasn't just symbolic. Cacao was also linked to warfare, an arena where power was displayed through strength, bravery, and the divine favor bestowed upon warriors. When warriors returned from battle victorious, they would often drink chocolate as part of the celebration. The idea was that cacao would enhance their strength, heal their wounds, and restore their energy. Imagine a warrior covered in dust and sweat, sipping that rich, frothy chocolate after a hard-fought battle. It wasn't just a way to unwind. It was believed to fortify the body and spirit, to refresh and rejuvenate. In some ways, cacao was like a magic potion, a quick way to boost your strength and heal. It wasn't just a drink, it was a power-up. That might sound a little like something out of a fantasy novel, but to the Aztecs, it was as real as the land beneath their feet. The effects of cacao were thought to be both physical and spiritual, as if drinking it could restore balance to both body and soul. Even today, we know that cacao contains compounds like theobromine, which can have a stimulating effect on the body. But to the Aztecs, it was something far more mystical, a secret known only to the gods. Historians still debate whether the Aztecs fully understood the physical effects of cacao, or whether they simply attributed its powers to the divine. Some argue that cacao's stimulating effects were more or less recognized, especially given the Aztecs' sophisticated understanding of plant medicine. Others suggest that cacao's perceived healing powers were largely based on belief in myth, and that its effects were mostly psychological. Whether the Aztecs truly knew about the scientific properties of cacao or simply believed in its magical qualities is still up for discussion. But what we do know is that cacao was an essential part of their spiritual and cultural life. The consumption of cacao also had a distinct social and political element. Imagine being at a grand Aztec feast or ceremony. If you were a noble or a priest, you'd be handed a cup of thick, frothy chocolate served in an ornate vessel. It would be a mark of your status, a sign of your connection to the divine. But for those lower on the social ladder, cacao was still significant, even if they didn't drink it as often or in the same elaborate manner. For everyone in Aztec society, cacao was a marker of social rank and spiritual power. It was a drink that separated the elite from the commoners, a drink that tied the people to the gods in a way that no other food or drink could. Cacao wasn't just food. It was a key to understanding Aztec society, a bridge between the earthly and the divine. It was about more than nourishment. It was about power, spirituality, and social status. Drinking cacao wasn't just a way to fill your stomach. It was a way to fill your soul. And perhaps, when you sip that chocolate bar or cup of hot cocoa today, you're still unknowingly channeling the same ancient power the Aztecs once believed flowed through their bodies. As we continue on this journey through Aztec chocolate, it's important to realize that chocolate wasn't just a beverage for ceremonial purposes or a symbol of divine power. It was deeply embedded in the daily lives of the Aztecs. From the lowliest farmer to the highest-ranking warrior, the vast majority of Aztecs may not have had the privilege of sipping on the luxurious, spiced chocolate drinks reserved for the elite. But cacao was still a crucial part of their lives, even as currency. Yes, cacao beans weren't just prized as a drink. They were used as actual currency. Think of it like this. In our world today, we use coins, paper bills, or digital numbers to exchange for goods and services. For the Aztecs, however, cacao was their go-to currency. A single cacao bean could be used to buy almost anything, from a simple meal to a fine piece of clothing, or even to pay taxes. The value of cacao beans was such that they were accepted as payment across the empire, making them a universal medium of exchange. If you were fortunate enough to be involved in trade, you might exchange bags of cacao beans for other valuable commodities, like cotton, maize, or even slaves. Can you imagine if our current society traded with chocolate today? The supermarket would be a very different experience. Now, this begs the question, why cacao? Why was it cacao, of all things, that became the lifeblood of the Aztec economy? The answer lies in the bean's intrinsic value. Cacao was not just a food. It had ritual, medicinal, and even political significance. A drink made from cacao could allegedly heal the body, soothe the soul, and protect the spirit. And because it was so closely tied to the gods, using it as currency gave it an added level of sanctity. It wasn't just a commodity, it was a divine gift. By using cacao beans for transactions, the Aztecs were, in a sense, honoring the gods with every purchase and exchange. But cacao's role as currency didn't just affect the economy, it also had a social dimension. Because cacao was so valuable, it became a status symbol. Those who could afford to drink chocolate regularly were the elites, the nobles, priests, and warriors. But even the common folk could enjoy some form of chocolate, albeit in a more diluted and less extravagant form. Commoners drank a version of chocolate that was more basic, often without the spices and added ingredients of the royal drink, and it was not consumed on the same sacred ceremonial level. However, even the lower classes had a respect for cacao as something that connected them to the divine, something they could only dream of enjoying in the way the elites did. So, cacao wasn't just a luxury item, it was an important social equalizer. Everyone, regardless of rank, had access to it. But how much and how often you consumed it said a lot about your place in society, and those who could afford the elaborate, spiced chocolate drinks were seen as being favored by the gods, as if the drink itself conferred some sort of divine blessing. There was a belief that drinking cacao could help you communicate with the gods, that each sip was a small offering, a gesture of reverence to the divine powers above. But here's where things get interesting. Not only was cacao part of the social and economic structure of Aztec life, but it was also incredibly central to their belief system. You may think of chocolate today as something you reach for when you want a sweet snack or a pick-me-up. But for the Aztecs, it was a source of power and spirituality. Consuming chocolate was like tapping into an ancient source of energy, something that could heal both body and mind. You can almost picture it, an Aztec warrior, fresh from the battlefield, sipping on a frothy mug of thick chocolate, spiced with chili, vanilla, and other aromatic ingredients. This wasn't just a treat, it was a means of healing. After a long day of fighting, what better way to replenish your energy and stay in the favor of the gods than by drinking chocolate? The Aztecs believed it could boost strength, promote healing, and even protect the heart. It was said that drinking chocolate could keep the warrior's heart strong, preventing exhaustion and helping them to maintain focus. The heart, after all, was central to Aztec beliefs about strength and courage. A healthy heart meant that you could fight longer, harder, and with more conviction. But why the heart? Why did the Aztecs believe that chocolate was so tied to the heart and its power? Historians still debate whether the Aztecs genuinely understood the biological functions of the heart, or if they saw it more symbolically as the center of courage and vitality. Regardless, chocolate's association with the heart seemed to reinforce its image as a powerful, life-giving substance. Consuming it wasn't just about indulgence, it was about ensuring that the drink had a tangible effect on your body. It was about aligning yourself with the divine, strengthening your inner vitality, and preparing for the next battle, both physical and spiritual. So, how did all of this translate to daily life for the average Aztec? While they may not have been able to partake in the elaborate rituals that the elite enjoyed, cacao still played a role in their lives. The fact that cacao beans were used as currency meant that even the poorest farmers could gain access to the product Though they may have enjoyed a simpler version of the drink, cacao was woven into the fabric of Aztec society, with nearly every person interacting with it in one form or another. But it wasn't just about health and wealth. Cacao also had social and religious implications. The act of offering cacao in our religious ceremonies was a way for the Aztecs to demonstrate their devotion to the gods. As part of these rituals, cacao was sometimes burned or offered in ceremonial cups, often accompanied by sacrifices and prayers. The idea was that the gods would receive the essence of the cacao and bless the people with abundance, protection, and health. It's important to realize, though, that cacao's religious significance wasn't just about the gods. It was also about how the Aztecs used cacao to strengthen their identity as a people. Cacao was integral to their understanding of the world and their place in it. It was a food of the gods, a drink that connected the earthly and the divine, the physical and the spiritual. Today, when we enjoy a cup of hot chocolate, it's easy to forget that, centuries ago, that very drink was thought to hold mystical powers. It was a drink that could heal, empower, and even communicate with the divine. And while the specifics of what cacao could do might have been rooted in the beliefs of the Aztecs, the idea of cacao as a power source continues to influence our relationship with chocolate today. Imagine walking through the crowded marketplaces of Tenochtitlan, the bustling capital of the Aztec Empire. You're surrounded by vibrant colors, the smell of fresh produce, and the distant hum of traders exchanging goods. But what catches your eye isn't the food or the textiles. It's the gleaming cacao beans on display, piled high like treasures from another world. You stop and look closely. The sight is almost magical. People are trading these small, humble beans like they're worth more than gold. And they are. To the Aztecs, cacao was more than just a food or a drink. It was a symbol of wealth, power, and divine favor. Now, picture yourself as an Aztec merchant, standing at your stall with baskets full of cacao beans. You're not just selling a simple product, you're offering a piece of the gods. When you trade cacao beans, you're not just getting something in return. You are giving your customer a connection to something much bigger. As you weigh the beans, you can almost feel the ancient power in your hands, the legacy of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god who brought cacao to earth for humanity's benefit. Every cacao bean is a token of divine power, and in this world, it has both spiritual and material worth. In Aztec society, cacao was far more than an ingredient for ceremonial chocolate drinks. It was integral to the functioning of the empire's economy, culture, and religion. The importance of cacao was not just reflected in its role as currency, but also in its ability to bring people closer to the divine. Cacao wasn't just a commodity, it was a lifeblood for the Aztecs, something that tied the empire together in a way that no other single product could, whether in the form of currency, sacred offerings, or healing potions. Cacao had a meaning far beyond its delicious taste. It was a tangible connection to the gods themselves. However, despite cacao's widespread use and reverence, there was still an element of mystery surrounding it. Historians still argue about whether the Aztecs were truly aware of the health benefits of cacao, or if its significance was mostly cultural and spiritual. Was cacao truly a medicinal wonder, as some believe, or were its powers exaggerated in the fervor of religious devotion? Some researchers argue that the Aztecs might have known that cacao was rich in antioxidants and essential minerals, which helped support heart health and boost energy. But there's no real way to know for sure. All we have are the ancient records that suggest cacao was revered for its medicinal properties, though how much of that was grounded in actual science versus religious belief remains a topic of debate. Regardless of the true health benefits, the belief in cacao's powers ran deep throughout Aztec society. People believed that drinking it could improve health, boost strength, and protect the body. The connection between cacao and the heart was especially significant. The Aztecs were obsessed with the idea that the heart was the center of life and strength, and they thought that drinking cacao could fortify the heart, preventing fatigue and exhaustion. If you were an Aztec warrior, sipping a mug of chocolate before heading into battle wasn't just a way to enjoy a drink. It was a way to armor yourself spiritually, to prepare your body for the challenges ahead. And this connection to the heart is not just symbolic, it's grounded in the physical properties of cacao. Even today, we know that cacao contains compounds like theobromine, which can have a stimulant effect on the body, much like caffeine. The Aztecs, in their wisdom, may have unknowingly stumbled upon the stimulating and mood-boosting effects of cacao. Drinking it wasn't just about enjoying a warm beverage. It was about nourishing your body and spirit in a way that would make you stronger, more focused, and ready for whatever came your way. But the Aztecs didn't stop at using cacao for health benefits. They also believed that it could enhance mental clarity and focus. If you were preparing for a spiritual ceremony or a critical moment in your life, you might drink cacao to help clear your mind and prepare for the task ahead. It wasn't just about physical strength. It was about mental fortitude, the kind of clarity that could guide you through important decisions, rituals, or battles. For the Aztecs, cacao wasn't just a drink. It was a tool for achieving higher states of awareness and purpose. And let's not forget about the elite warriors and rulers who consumed cacao as part of their daily routine. For them, cacao wasn't just a form of self-care. It was an essential ritual that symbolized their connection to the gods and their place in the grand scheme of the empire. It was a way for them to maintain their strength and spiritual connection to the divine, ensuring that they stayed in the gods' favor and continued to receive their blessings. For the Aztec elites, drinking cacao was as much about maintaining their power as it was about maintaining their health. The rituals surrounding cacao drinking were also incredibly complex and steeped in meaning. When a high-ranking priest or noble drank chocolate, it wasn't just a casual act. It was a highly formalized process that involved specific ingredients, vessels, and even gestures. The preparation of cacao was a ritual in itself, with the drink being carefully mixed, poured, and consumed in a specific order. Every step was part of a spiritual practice designed to ensure that the gods would take notice and bestow their blessings. Even the frothy texture of the drink held special significance, as it was believed that the froth was the physical manifestation of the divine energy that cacao brought into the world. These sacred rituals weren't just about the physical act of drinking, they were a way of aligning the self with the cosmos, of ensuring that one's place in the world was secure and favored by the gods. It was a way of reaffirming one's power, strength, and spiritual connection. And cacao was the key that unlocked that connection. As the Aztecs saw it, the drink wasn't just food, it was a bridge to the divine, a way to maintain harmony with the forces of the universe. But let's return to the everyday Aztec. For most people, cacao was more than just an ingredient for ceremonial drinks or a form of currency. It was a part of their daily lives, an essential component of their diet. While the chocolate drinks enjoyed by the elite were spiced and ceremonially significant, the commoners drank cacao in a simpler form, often mixed with water and sometimes flavored with chili or herbs. It wasn't the decadent, frothy beverage that the upper class enjoyed, but it was still highly valued and provided essential nutrients. Cacao was a central part of their diet, a way to stay energized and healthy while navigating the demands of daily life. So, while you might think of chocolate as a modern indulgence, a sweet treat to be enjoyed in front of the TV, remember that for the Aztecs, it was so much more. It was medicine, currency, and a means of connecting with the divine. It was a symbol of power, wealth, and spiritual strength. And as you sip your hot chocolate or bite into a chocolate bar, think about the ancient Aztecs who believed that the cacao they drank could heal their bodies, fortify their hearts, and bring them closer to the gods. In a way, when you enjoy chocolate today, you're still participating in a long tradition, one that stretches back thousands of years and connects you to the divine power of cacao. As we dive deeper into the Aztec world, it's time to consider how cacao wasn't just a luxurious drink or a piece of currency. It was a cornerstone of Aztec rituals. Picture this. You're an Aztec priest standing before a massive stone altar, surrounded by flickering candles and incense. The air is thick with anticipation, the sound of chanting filling the space. On the altar before you sits an ornate vessel of rich, frothy chocolate, prepared specifically for the gods. You raise the vessel, offering the sacred drink as a tribute to the heavens. For the Aztecs, this act wasn't just symbolic, it was a direct link to the divine. Cacao's role in religious ceremonies was as sacred as it gets. The Aztecs used cacao in a variety of rituals, often accompanying offerings to their gods. Whether it was for a harvest celebration, a religious festival, or a military victory, cacao was central to these spiritual practices. The belief was that by offering cacao, the people could honor the gods and receive divine blessings in return. But it wasn't just about what was offered, it was about what the drink symbolized. Cacao was a tangible representation of the bond between humanity and the gods. To consume it, to offer it, was to acknowledge the divine presence in every part of life. But let's step back for a moment. We've already discussed cacao's ties to the gods and the role it played in rituals. But what about the everyday uses of cacao in Aztec culture? It wasn't just about ceremonial occasions. Cacao also played a crucial role in the daily diet, particularly for the elite. The nobility and priests had access to cacao drinks on a regular basis, while the common people might drink it more sparingly. For those who could afford it, cacao was seen as a luxury, an indulgence that provided a powerful boost to both body and mind. In fact, many believed that cacao could invigorate the drinker, enhancing physical stamina and mental clarity. Imagine yourself as a high-ranking noble, perhaps even a warrior. You wake up early, ready to start your day with a cup of thick, bitter chocolate. It's prepared with chili, vanilla, and possibly other spices, served steaming hot in a ceremonial cup. The warm drink energizes you, giving you the focus and strength you need for the day ahead. This wasn't just breakfast, it was part of a carefully curated lifestyle that kept the elite feeling sharp, strong, and connected to the divine. But cacao wasn't only for the elites, though it was far less common for commoners to enjoy it in such elaborate forms. The average Aztec could still partake in cacao, though perhaps not in the ceremonial, richly spiced forms enjoyed by the upper class. The cacao consumed by everyday Aztecs was simpler, less sweet, less decadent. It was often drunk with just water and a pinch of chili, without the complex flavoring that made the upper-class drink so special. However, even in these humble forms, cacao was seen as more than just food. It was something sacred, something that connected everyone in Aztec society to the divine. Now, let's return to the concept of cacao as currency, which was essential to understanding the economic structure of the Aztec Empire. The cacao bean was a medium of exchange, an item so valuable that it became the backbone of Aztec trade. Farmers, merchants, and even warriors would use cacao as a form of payment for services, goods, and tribute. And because cacao was tied to religious and spiritual significance, it wasn't just the elite who traded it. Every class participated in the cacao economy. Imagine living in a world where chocolate is worth its weight in gold. A bag of cacao beans could be traded for food, cloth, or other necessities, depending on its value. Yet, there was an even deeper connection between cacao and power. For the Aztecs, cacao wasn't just a commodity, it was a symbol of dominance and control. The wealthy and powerful controlled the cacao trade, and those who held cacao beans in their hands held economic power. Cacao was a status symbol, used as an offering to the gods and as a measure of wealth. But it was also a tool of political control. By regulating the flow of cacao, the ruling class could maintain their position at the top of the social ladder, ensuring that the gods' blessings and all the power associated with them remained within their reach. Cacao's role in Aztec society wasn't limited to ceremonial purposes or economic transactions. It was also deeply tied to the Aztec understanding of life, death, and the cosmos. The gods themselves were believed to have a direct influence on the cacao trade. For instance, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, was not only the god of wind and rain, but also the deity who had brought cacao to humanity. This connection between cacao and Quetzalcoatl was so profound that cacao was often seen as a gift from the gods, one that required careful handling and respectful use. To waste cacao was to disrespect the gods, and to offer cacao without due reverence was to risk angering them. Historians still debate the extent to which the Aztecs genuinely believed that cacao was imbued with divine powers, or whether this belief was simply a symbolic part of their culture. Some suggest that the Aztecs truly believed cacao had magical properties, capable of enhancing health, boosting energy, and even providing protection. Others argue that cacao's significance was more about reinforcing social structures and maintaining the status quo. What's certain is that the Aztecs held cacao in such high regard that they were willing to sacrifice, offer, and trade it in order to ensure their place in the universe. But was it just a symbol of power, or did cacao actually have real-world health benefits? We know today that cacao is rich in antioxidants and other nutrients, which could explain why the Aztecs thought it was so good for their health. Theobromine, the stimulant found in cacao, has similar effects to caffeine, and it's possible that the Aztecs recognized these effects even if they didn't understand the science behind them. Whether or not the Aztecs had a full understanding of cacao's health benefits remains a mystery, but the fact that they placed so much emphasis on its spiritual and physical effects speaks to the deep reverence they had for the drink. It's fascinating to think that thousands of years ago, the Aztecs understood something that modern science has only recently begun to explore. They recognized the power of cacao, not just as food, but as a way to connect with the gods, to boost vitality, and to bring balance to both body and soul. Even today, when we enjoy a cup of chocolate, we're participating in an ancient tradition that has lasted for centuries. The Aztecs, it seems, had more than just a sweet tooth. They had an understanding of cacao that we can still appreciate today. So, the next time you drink a cup of hot chocolate or bite into a chocolate bar, take a moment to think about its long, rich history. You're not just indulging in a sweet treat. You're connecting to an ancient legacy that spans thousands of years. The Aztecs, with their belief in cacao's divine powers, may have been onto something far greater than we ever realized. And as we sip our chocolate today, we're still partaking in the same ritual of nourishment, connection, and reverence that the Aztecs once did. As we explore further, let's zoom in on one of the most fascinating aspects of Aztec culture: the intricate and sometimes strange ingredients that went into their chocolate. Modern-day chocolate might be sweet, smooth, and simple, but the Aztecs' chocolate was a much more complex affair, often packed with a variety of spices and even the occasional insect. Yes, the Aztecs added chili, vanilla, and sometimes even ground ants to their chocolate. It sounds odd, doesn't it? But when you think about it, these combinations weren't just about flavor. They were about creating a drink that had as much power as it did taste. Now, imagine for a moment, you're an Aztec preparing chocolate the way it was meant to be enjoyed in ceremonies: dark, spicy, and rich. You've carefully roasted your cacao beans and ground them on a stone slab. You add a bit of chili to give it some heat, a dash of vanilla to balance it, and here's the kicker, perhaps even a handful of crushed ants to bring an earthy, slightly tangy note. This drink wasn't just a treat. It was a complete experience, something that ignited your senses in ways that chocolate today just can't compare to. While most modern palates might find this combination a bit jarring, To the Aztecs, it was a perfect balance of ingredients that was believed to be infused with spiritual power. But how did these strange combinations come to be? The Aztecs were no strangers to the idea that certain foods and drinks could carry both physical and spiritual significance, just like how a certain herb might be used in medicine to treat a specific ailment. Spices and ingredients in their chocolate were likely chosen for their symbolic or believed beneficial properties. Chili, for example, wasn't just there for heat. It was seen as a powerful ingredient that could increase vitality and improve circulation. Vanilla, a rare and exotic flavor at the time, was associated with sweetness and fertility. And those ants? Well, they were believed to bring a grounding element to the drink, connecting the drinker to the earth. As quirky as this sounds, it makes sense in the context of Aztec society. They believed that the foods they consumed, particularly cacao, could have profound effects on their health and spiritual well-being. And while modern science may not back up the medicinal effects of ants in your chocolate, the idea that cacao could have a deep, complex impact on your body and soul was central to the Aztecs' view of the world. They didn't just see their food as sustenance, they saw it as a medium for transformation, a way to align themselves with the divine forces around them. But, of course, it wasn't just about strange ingredients. It was also about the preparation. The way the Aztecs prepared their chocolate was a ritual in itself. Once the cacao beans were ground into a paste, they were mixed with water and sometimes a bit of maize, corn. The key was to whip the drink into a frothy, bubbly texture, creating a thick, velvety texture that added to the drink's mystical qualities. The Aztecs believed that the foam was where the drink's power truly lay, as it was thought to be the vehicle through which the gods' blessings were transferred to the drinker. Imagine drinking a cup of chocolate where the foam itself carried the divine energy of the universe. This wasn't just a beverage, it was a spiritual offering. If you were an Aztec elite enjoying a ritualistic chocolate drink, you would savor every sip, knowing that this was no ordinary food or drink. The flavor, the texture, the ceremony, it was all part of an experience designed to connect you to something greater. And for the Aztec priests, this wasn't just an indulgence. It was a way to maintain their connection with the divine. The act of preparing and offering chocolate was just as sacred as the act of drinking it. And while modern-day chocolate might be a simple indulgence, for the Aztecs, it was a symbol of divine favor, power, and vitality. But what about those outside the upper echelons of Aztec society? What did chocolate mean to the common folk, the farmers and laborers, who didn't have access to the elaborate ceremonies or the fancy chocolate drinks? Well, even for them, cacao was still something special, just more humble. The commoners would drink a simpler version of the chocolate, made mostly of ground cacao and water, perhaps with a bit of chili or other spices to add flavor. It wasn't as rich or ceremonial as the drink enjoyed by the elites, but it still held spiritual significance. For the common Aztec, drinking cacao was a way of connecting to the gods, of participating in a culture that believed in the divine power of food and drink. The relationship between food, drink, and spirituality is deeply woven into Aztec culture. Cacao was just one example of how the Aztecs believed that everything they consumed had meaning. Food was never just food. It was a tool for maintaining balance with the universe, a way to align oneself with the gods and nature. The Aztecs believed that their diet, which was centered around maize, beans, and other plants, had the power to nourish not just the body, but the soul as well. And cacao, as a key component of that diet, played a central role in their spiritual life. Even in death, cacao played a part in the Aztecs' spiritual journey. Cacao was often used in funerary rituals, believed to help guide the soul of the deceased to the afterlife. The Aztecs believed that the journey after death was just as important as life itself, and that the deceased needed sustenance for their journey. Cacao, as a divine food, was thought to offer that sustenance, whether as an offering to the gods or as a way to honor the deceased. Cacao remained a vital part of the spiritual cycle of life and death. But the true mystique of Aztec chocolate isn't just in its ingredients or the rituals surrounding it. It's in the belief that cacao could literally transform the drinker. By consuming cacao, the Aztecs believed they were absorbing divine power, whether it was boosting their vitality, fortifying their hearts, or enhancing their connection to the gods. Cacao was seen as a source of transformation, a way to become something greater than oneself. This idea of cacao as transformative is one of the reasons why it remained so central to Aztec life, both in daily practice and in religious ceremonies. So, when you enjoy a piece of chocolate today, you might think back to the ancient Aztecs who believed that drinking their rich, spicy chocolate could change the course of their day and their life. Chocolate, for them, was not just food. It was magic, medicine, and a direct line to the gods. And even today, when we enjoy chocolate, there's still a lingering sense of that ancient belief in its power. Sure, it might not be the divine elixir it once was, but in a way, every chocolate treat we indulge in is a tiny nod to the Aztecs and the powerful legacy they left behind. If there's one thing that the Aztecs understood better than anyone, it was the idea that chocolate wasn't just something you consumed. It was something you used to create, a powerful connection between the physical world and the divine. In this section, we'll dig into the idea of chocolate as a tool of communication with the gods and how it played an essential role in various religious rituals. But first, let's imagine you're an Aztec priest preparing for a major ceremony, something designed to bring favor and blessings to the empire. Your ritual involves chocolate, of course, and it's not just about drinking it. It's about using it as a bridge to the spiritual realm. The act of offering chocolate to the gods was an incredibly sacred process. Priests would prepare the drink with great care, knowing that it was a tool for communicating with the divine. They believed that the drink carried the power of the gods, and that by consuming it or offering it to the gods in the right way, they could receive divine favor. The chocolate wasn't just food, it was a sacrament, and so the Aztec priests would perform a careful and elaborate ritual, mixing the cacao with water, spices, and sometimes other ingredients like maize or flowers. It was believed that this specific combination of ingredients created a drink that was not only nourishing, but spiritually potent. But it wasn't just about making the chocolate, it was about how it was consumed. The priests would drink the chocolate in a specific manner, often in a ceremonial cup, pouring it from one vessel to another to create a froth. This froth was seen as a manifestation of the god's blessing. The act of drinking the chocolate was, in essence, a way of receiving divine energy. Imagine for a moment that you're the priest, your hands steady as you sip the thick, frothy chocolate, feeling not just the warmth and taste, but the very essence of the gods flowing through you. It wasn't a casual drink. It was a deeply spiritual experience that connected the drinker with the divine. Historians still debate whether the Aztecs truly understood the full spiritual significance of cacao, or whether they saw it as more of a symbolic offering. Was the act of drinking cacao about ritual and belief, or was it simply a ceremonial tool to demonstrate power and control over the natural world? Some suggest that the Aztecs saw cacao as a vehicle to achieve higher spiritual states, while others believe it was used to reinforce social hierarchies and political structures. Either way, it's clear that cacao played a central role in the religious and spiritual life of the Aztec people, acting as both a literal and symbolic connection to the gods. But let's step outside the realm of religious rituals for a moment and look at how cacao was used in everyday Aztec life. It wasn't just priests and nobles who had access to this sacred substance. The commoners, too, consumed chocolate, though their version was far less elaborate. While the elite drank richly spiced chocolate with a variety of ingredients, commoners typically drank a simpler form: water mixed with ground cacao, sometimes with a bit of chili for flavor. Yet, even in its simplest form, cacao was still revered. It wasn't just a drink, it was a symbol of divine grace, something that tied the drinker to the gods, no matter their social status. For the common folk, cacao was still a vital part of life. The belief in cacao's power was so ingrained in Aztec culture that even the simplest chocolate drink could have spiritual significance. To drink cacao, even in its humblest form, was to participate in something greater than oneself. It was an acknowledgement of the divine presence in every moment of life. Whether it was a simple drink in the morning to start the day, or a ceremonial offering to the gods, cacao had a special place in the hearts of the Aztec people. It was a constant reminder of their connection to the divine, and that made it invaluable. But cacao's spiritual significance wasn't just about personal consumption. It also had a role in the larger political and social structure of the Aztec Empire. Cacao was used in diplomatic ceremonies too, as a sign of goodwill and respect. If you were a diplomat or emissary, presenting cacao beans was a way of honoring the gods and your counterparts. It was a gift that transcended simple material value. It was a way to communicate and reinforce power, alliances, and the status of your people. A gift of cacao wasn't just about the exchange of goods. It was about reinforcing the social order, demonstrating respect, and ensuring divine favor. In these diplomatic settings, cacao was more than a commodity. It was a means of aligning political interests with spiritual beliefs. The cacao trade was not just about money. It was about ensuring that the gods were on your side. And in a world where the favor of the gods was thought to be essential for success, having cacao in your possession was a symbol of divine support. For the Aztecs, political power and religious devotion were inextricably linked, and cacao was a key component of that relationship. Imagine then how cacao became more than just food or currency. It became a symbol of the unity between the earth and the divine. It represented life, vitality, and strength. And in many ways, it became the glue that held the Aztec Empire together, both spiritually and politically. Without cacao, the Aztecs would have lacked a vital link to the divine, and their powerful, interconnected society would have faltered. Cacao was the lifeblood of the Aztec Empire, not just because it was a practical commodity, but because it embodied the core principles of Aztec culture: life, power, and divine connection. But as with all things, the arrival of the Spanish marked the beginning of the end for the Aztec understanding of cacao. When Hernán Cortés and his men arrived in the early 1500s, they encountered the rich chocolate drink in the court of Moctezuma II. The Spanish were fascinated by the drink, but they didn't understand its true significance. They introduced sugar and other sweeteners, transforming the bitter, spicy beverage into the sweet drink we know today as hot chocolate. Over time, the spiritual and ceremonial significance of cacao was lost, replaced by the commercialized chocolate we enjoy today. Still, traces of the Aztecs' reverence for cacao remain in every piece of chocolate we eat, a reminder of the powerful legacy they left behind. Historians still argue whether the Spanish truly understood the importance of cacao to the Aztecs, or whether they simply took the product and commercialized it for their own benefit. The story of cacao's transformation from a sacred beverage to a global commodity is a fascinating one, and it's a reminder of how deeply culture, religion, and trade can influence the way a food item is consumed and understood. So, as you enjoy your next chocolate treat, remember that you're partaking in a long history, a history that spans thousands of years, linking you to a culture that once believed cacao had the power to heal, energize, and connect them to the gods. And while we may not sip chocolate with the same reverence as the Aztecs, there's something deeply comforting about knowing that this humble food has such a rich, divine history. Cacao, the gift from the gods, lives on in every piece of chocolate we eat today. Now that we've explored the complex, spiritual, and practical significance of cacao for the Aztecs, let's delve into how this sacred drink evolved when the Spanish arrived. When Hernán Cortés and his fellow conquistadors encountered the Aztec Empire in the early 1500s, they were struck by the vast wealth and the mysterious, intoxicating drink they encountered in the Aztec court. Imagine stepping into a grand palace where the air is filled with the scent of roasted cacao, and the regal figure of Moctezuma II sits, sipping from an ornate vessel. The Spanish didn't just see a drink, they saw something valuable, something they could take back to Europe and perhaps profit from. When they first tasted the drink, it was nothing like the sweet cocoa we know today. The Aztec version of chocolate was thick, bitter, and spicy, served without sugar, and often flavored with ingredients like chili, vanilla, and sometimes even flowers. For the Spanish, the experience was probably overwhelming. The bitterness, combined with the spice, was far from the sweet treat they were accustomed to. Historians still debate the exact reaction of the Spanish, but it's clear that they were fascinated by this new drink. While it didn't immediately appeal to their tastes, they recognized that it had value, both culturally and economically. But the Spanish didn't just stop at drinking it, they began to transform it. One of the most significant changes they made was to add sugar. Sweetening the drink with sugar helped to make it more palatable to the European taste buds. As chocolate spread across Europe, it evolved into the sweet, smooth drink we recognize today. The transformation wasn't just about taste, it also marked a shift in the cultural significance of the drink. What was once a sacred beverage, drunk by Aztec elites and used in religious rituals, began to take on a more secular, indulgent role in European society. The Spanish also introduced chocolate to other parts of Europe, where it became a status symbol among the aristocracy. Imagine being part of a European royal court in the 16th century, sipping from a fine cup of chocolate, sugar-infused and beautifully presented. Unlike the Aztecs, who used chocolate in ceremonial and sacred contexts, Europeans began to treat it as a luxurious indulgence, reserved for the elite. It wasn't long before chocolate made its way to France, England, and other parts of Europe, where it quickly became a sought-after commodity. One of the most interesting aspects of chocolate's European journey is the way it was integrated into the culture of the time. As chocolate spread across Europe, it became a symbol of wealth, luxury, and even sophistication. Aristocrats would often host elaborate gatherings centered around chocolate, serving it in specially designed cups and using it as a means of impressing their guests. The drink became associated with both indulgence and refinement, and it wasn't long before chocolate houses began to open in major cities like Paris and London. These chocolate houses became the social hubs of their time, much like today's coffee shops or tea houses. As chocolate became more widely available, it began to take on new forms. It wasn't just a drink anymore. It became a confection, a treat to be eaten and enjoyed in many different ways. By the 18th century, chocolate was being consumed in a variety of forms, from solid bars to truffles and bonbons. It was during this time that the concept of chocolate as a sweet treat truly took root, and the idea of eating chocolate for pleasure became firmly established. In many ways, the transformation of chocolate from a sacred beverage to a luxury commodity to a global treat mirrors the changes in the way people began to perceive food and indulgence in general. But let's not forget the original Aztec connection to the cocoa bean. While chocolate had become a sweet indulgence in Europe, it still retained a bit of its sacred nature, especially in the countries where it had originated. In Mexico and other parts of Central America, cacao remained a significant part of indigenous cultures long after the Spanish arrived. It was still used in ceremonies, often in a more modernized version of the drink, albeit without the elaborate spiritual beliefs that the Aztecs once held. The shift from the sacred to the secular is one of the most fascinating aspects of chocolate's journey through history. What was once a beverage that connected the drinker to the divine became a symbol of status and luxury, and eventually a global commodity. The sweet, creamy chocolate bars we enjoy today are far removed from the bitter, spiced drinks of the Aztecs. However, In every bite, there's a trace of that ancient history, a reminder of the Aztecs who once believed that cacao had the power to heal, invigorate, and connect them to the gods. This transformation of chocolate from sacred to secular didn't happen overnight. It was a slow evolution that took centuries to unfold. It required the blending of different cultures, tastes, and ideas. When we look at chocolate today, we see it as a simple pleasure, something we indulge in after a long day, or when we're in need of a little comfort. But behind that chocolate bar is a long history of ritual, power, and divine connection, stretching back thousands of years to the ancient Aztecs. As you enjoy your next piece of chocolate, take a moment to reflect on that journey from the Aztecs, who believed cacao could heal the body and soul, to the Spanish who transformed it into a sweet indulgence, and finally, to the global treat we know today. Chocolate has a rich and fascinating history. It's a history that transcends cultures, religions, and continents, and one that continues to evolve as we explore new ways to enjoy this ancient gift. The modern chocolate industry may be vastly different from the ancient Aztec cacao trade, but in every bite of chocolate, we are still connected to that distant past. And so, every time you unwrap a chocolate bar or sip a cup of hot cocoa, you're not just indulging in a sweet treat, you're partaking in a story that spans millennia, touching on culture, religion, power, and the divine. Now that we've explored how cacao was transformed by the Spanish and later spread across Europe, it's time to turn our attention back to the legacy of chocolate in modern times. While the sacred, mystical qualities that the Aztecs attributed to cacao may seem like ancient history, they still resonate today, albeit in a more secular form. Think about it. The modern world is obsessed with chocolate, from luxurious truffles to everyday chocolate bars. We use it to celebrate, to comfort ourselves, and even to express love. But how did chocolate evolve into the universal indulgence we know and crave today? The Aztecs believed that cacao was a divine gift from the gods, a magical elixir capable of healing and revitalizing. While we no longer see chocolate as a direct channel to the divine, we still view it through a lens of indulgence and pleasure. Chocolate has become so ingrained in our modern culture that it's hard to imagine a world without it. From romantic gifts on Valentine's Day to our go-to comfort food after a stressful day, chocolate is woven into the fabric of our daily lives. One of the key factors in chocolate's continued popularity is the way it has evolved to fit various tastes and preferences. In the Aztec world, chocolate was consumed as a thick, frothy, spicy beverage, often reserved for the elite and the priests. In contrast, modern chocolate has become a sweet, versatile treat available in countless forms, from milk chocolate bars to decadent dark chocolate truffles. This transformation wasn't just about making chocolate more palatable to a wider audience. It was about adapting an ancient food to fit the changing cultural landscape. However, as chocolate spread around the world, its significance shifted in ways that mirrored the expansion of global trade, colonialism, and cultural exchange. When chocolate first made its way to Europe, it was initially reserved for the aristocracy and royalty. But over time, it became a symbol of luxury for the masses, the opening of chocolate houses in the 17th and 18th centuries made it a trendy indulgence for the upper classes, while the invention of modern chocolate-making techniques, such as solid chocolate bars and confections, made it affordable and accessible to the broader public. This transformation was driven by technological advancements, particularly during the Industrial Revolution. The creation of machines that could mass-produce chocolate meant that it was no longer limited to the elite. Instead, chocolate became a mass-market commodity available in grocery stores across the globe. Innovations such as the invention of milk chocolate by Swiss chocolatier Daniel Peter in the late 19th century further democratized chocolate, making it even more widely enjoyed. The popularity of chocolate continued to grow throughout the 20th century, and with it came an explosion of new products and varieties. The rise of chocolate brands like Hershey's, Lindt, and Cadbury made chocolate even more accessible, with a wide range of options available to suit every taste and preference. And as the demand for chocolate grew, so too did the innovation in how it was used. Chocolate became the star ingredient in cakes, candies, ice cream, and even savory dishes. Today, chocolate is used in everything from desserts to drinks, from cookies to luxurious spa treatments. But chocolate's status as a global commodity comes with its own set of challenges. As demand for chocolate continues to rise, the production of cacao has become a complex issue involving global trade, sustainability, and labor practices. The reality of modern cacao farming often contrasts with the romanticized image of chocolate as a luxury item. Many cacao farmers live in poverty, facing unstable prices and exploitative working conditions. It's a far cry from the Aztecs' reverence for cacao as a sacred gift. The ethical concerns surrounding cacao production have sparked conversations about fair trade practices and sustainable farming methods. As consumers become more aware of the environmental and social impact of their purchases, there's a growing demand for chocolate made with ethically sourced cacao. Fair trade certification and sustainable practices are gaining traction, offering hope for a more equitable future for cacao farmers. This movement is a reminder that while chocolate may have once been a symbol of divine power and wealth for the Aztecs, its modern-day legacy is far more complex. At the same time, there's a growing trend in the world of gourmet chocolate, where artisans and chocolatiers focus on high-quality cacao beans, traditional methods, and the return to the roots of chocolate. Many of these modern chocolatiers seek to honor the ancient traditions of cacao, infusing their products with the spirit of the Aztecs' reverence for the bean. Whether it's through the use of single-origin cacao or the creation of small-batch, handcrafted confections, this movement brings us back to the idea of cacao as something special, a product to be savored and appreciated, not just consumed casually. So when you indulge in chocolate today, whether it's a simple milk chocolate bar or an artisanal dark chocolate truffle, you're participating in a long, rich tradition that stretches back thousands of years. You're experiencing a product that has been transformed and adapted, but one that still carries with it the legacy of the Aztecs. It's a connection to a past where cacao was more than just food. It was a symbol of life, power, and spiritual connection. And as we continue to enjoy chocolate, whether for pleasure, comfort, or celebration, we're reminded of the divine origins of this ancient, transformative gift. While we may no longer believe that chocolate holds the power to connect us to the gods, there's something timeless about its ability to bring us joy, pleasure, and a sense of indulgence. In a way, chocolate continues to be magical, if not in the way the Aztecs once believed, then in the way it brings people together, marks special occasions, and adds a little sweetness to the everyday. It's a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary things can carry the weight of history. And in the case of chocolate, that history is nothing short of extraordinary. As we continue to follow the path of chocolate's evolution, let's shift our focus to the modern-day consumer experience, which is far removed from the sacred ceremonial cacao of the Aztecs. Today, chocolate is found in every corner of the world, from the high-end gourmet shops in Paris to the corner stores in small villages. But how did we get from the revered bitter drink of the Aztec elite to the universally adored treat we enjoy today? The answer lies in the 19th and 20th centuries, when chocolate underwent some of its most transformative changes. One of the key turning points for chocolate came with the Industrial Revolution and the advent of mechanized production. Before the industrial era, chocolate was largely handcrafted, often by small chocolatiers, or even in people's homes. The process of grinding cacao beans and preparing the drink was labor-intensive, and the product was often reserved for the upper classes. But with the development of new technologies, chocolate began to be mass-produced. Machines made it easier to process cacao beans, and factories could now churn out large quantities of chocolate at a fraction of the cost. One of the key figures in the industrialization of chocolate was the Swiss chocolatier Daniel Peter. In 1875, Peter invented milk chocolate by adding condensed milk to cacao, creating a sweeter, creamier version of the traditional chocolate drink that was more palatable to the general population. The introduction of milk chocolate was a game changer. It opened up chocolate to a wider audience, making it not just a luxury for the elite, but an everyday treat for the masses. In the years that followed, other major advancements were made in chocolate production. The process of refining chocolate was perfected, and new techniques were developed for tempering, which allowed for smoother, more consistent chocolate. The creation of solid chocolate bars also marked a new era. Before this, chocolate was mostly consumed as a drink or in its raw form as cacao paste. But the solid chocolate bar made chocolate more portable, more convenient, and more accessible. With the rise of mass production and the popularization of milk chocolate, chocolate bars quickly became a staple snack in many households around the world. But the transformation of chocolate wasn't just about making it more affordable. It was also about branding and marketing. In the 20th century, chocolate companies began to develop their own iconic brands and marketing strategies. Companies like Hershey's, Cadbury, and Nestlé became household names, synonymous with quality chocolate. The advertisements that accompanied these products often focused on the joy and pleasure associated with eating chocolate, positioning it as a treat for any occasion. Chocolate became a symbol of indulgence, a little moment of happiness in an otherwise busy day. As chocolate became more widely available, it also became an important part of cultural celebrations. One of the most significant ways chocolate has embedded itself into our traditions is through holidays. Take Valentine's Day, for example. While the practice of giving chocolate on Valentine's Day didn't begin until the 19th century, it has since become a ubiquitous tradition. Chocolate is now the go-to gift for lovers and friends alike, symbolizing affection, sweetness, and romance. It's a tradition that connects us to the past in a way that few other foods can. And it's not just Valentine's Day. Chocolate has become essential to many other holidays, from Easter, where chocolate eggs and bunnies abound, to Christmas, when chocolate treats are often part of the festivities. Its association with holidays and special occasions has helped to cement its place in cultures all over the world. Whether it's in the form of a giant Easter egg or a simple box of chocolates on a birthday, chocolate has become synonymous with celebration and joy. But beyond these cultural rituals, chocolate has also found its place in modern cuisine. Chefs and chocolatiers have begun to experiment with chocolate in new and innovative ways. Gourmet chocolate has risen in popularity, with artisanal chocolatiers focusing on high-quality, ethically sourced cacao beans and unique flavor profiles. Some chocolates are infused with exotic spices, herbs, and fruits, while others combine savory and sweet flavors, pushing the boundaries of what chocolate can be. Today, chocolate is as much a luxury food item as it is a comfort food. Whether you're savoring a high-end truffle or a simple bar of dark chocolate, the pleasure of eating it is undeniable. But with all this mass production and commercialization of chocolate, we can't ignore the impact it has had on the world, particularly in the cacao-producing countries. The rise in global demand for chocolate has led to increased cacao production, but it has also created significant challenges. Many cacao farmers, particularly in countries like Ivory Coast and Ghana, struggle with low wages, poor working conditions, and even child labor. The modern chocolate industry has come under scrutiny for its ethical concerns surrounding cacao production. In response, there has been a growing movement towards fair trade and sustainable cacao farming, with brands offering products that promise to source cacao in a way that supports farmers and the environment. In the early 21st century, there has been a renewed interest in the ethical implications of chocolate consumption. Many consumers are now more aware of where their chocolate comes from, how it's produced, and whether the workers who harvest the cacao are paid fairly. This shift towards sustainability and fair trade has been important in pushing the industry to address these concerns. By choosing chocolates that are ethically sourced, consumers can help ensure that cacao farmers are treated fairly and that their products are grown in a way that respects the environment. This brings us back to the Aztec origins of chocolate. When the Aztecs consumed cacao, it was far more than just a food. It was a product with deep spiritual and cultural significance. Today, we don't drink chocolate as a form of divine communication, but we still indulge in it for its ability to bring joy and comfort. And while we no longer rely on cacao for health and vitality in the same way the Aztecs did, we can still recognize the power of chocolate to lift our spirits, mark special occasions, and even bring people together. In some ways, the Aztecs were onto something profound. Cacao was never just a commodity. It was a source of connection, power, and transformation. Even though the context in which we consume chocolate has changed. The sense of pleasure and indulgence that it provides has remained constant. Today, as you unwrap a chocolate bar or indulge in a decadent piece of chocolate cake, you're participating in a tradition that stretches back thousands of years, from the Aztecs to the present day. The journey of chocolate, from the sacred beverage of the Aztecs to the sweet indulgence we know today, is fascinating in many ways, especially when we consider how this ancient food has continuously adapted to new cultures, tastes, and technologies. But beyond the transformation of chocolate itself, there is a much deeper story about how its meaning has shifted over time. From a divine gift of the gods to a luxury enjoyed by the elite, and then to the mass market commodity it is today, chocolate's history mirrors broader changes in society, trade, and even morality. So, what's left of that sacredness in the world of chocolate today? As we sit down with our favorite chocolate bar, it's easy to forget that the Aztecs believed chocolate to be infused with power. For them, it wasn't just about enjoyment, it was a channel to the gods, a drink with profound spiritual implications. Today, chocolate is largely seen as a treat, a way to indulge ourselves and express affection or luxury. It's consumed casually, no longer reserved for the elite or used in rituals. But while the reverence for chocolate may have waned, there's still something deeply comforting about how it remains a central part of our lives. Chocolate is no longer tied to the gods, but it still carries with it a deep sense of joy, indulgence, and even celebration. In modern society, chocolate is deeply ingrained in our cultural rituals. Whether it's a holiday tradition, a comforting snack during stressful times, or a romantic gift, chocolate plays a key role in marking special occasions. The connection between chocolate and celebration is so strong that it's hard to imagine holidays like Valentine's Day, Easter, or Christmas without chocolate. Yet, the festive chocolate traditions we now associate with these occasions have roots that extend all the way back to the Aztecs. The Aztecs offered cacao in ceremonies that celebrated their gods, and today we use chocolate to celebrate love, joy, and shared moments with those we care about. Even if the divine nature of chocolate has faded, its role as a celebratory treat remains a testament to how deeply ingrained it is in human culture. Let's take Valentine's Day. As an example, the tradition of giving chocolate on Valentine's Day, which became popular in the 19th century, has roots in the idea of chocolate being a gift of affection. The connection between chocolate and romance was not accidental. It was rooted in the idea that chocolate has a unique power to elevate the spirit, much like it did for the Aztecs. While the Aztecs might have believed that chocolate could make you stronger or more spiritually connected, today we see it as a symbol of love, sweetness, and caring. Chocolate has become the go-to gift for expressing affection, a reminder of how deeply the belief in chocolate's transformative power lingers in our collective psyche, even if we no longer see it as a mystical force. But as chocolate became a commercial product, mass production and the rise of big brands transformed its meaning. What was once a rare and revered product slowly became available to anyone with the means to purchase it. The transformation of chocolate from a luxury good to an everyday commodity reflects a larger trend in the modern world, where much of what was once reserved for the elite is now accessible to the masses. But as chocolate became more ubiquitous, its sacredness and status diminished. This shift raises an interesting question. Does chocolate lose something of its magic when it becomes so common, so easily available? Despite its mass production and commercialization, there are still pockets of the chocolate world that aim to preserve the ancient reverence for cacao. High-end chocolatiers, especially those focused on single-origin chocolate and ethical sourcing, seek to bring back some of the artistry and sacredness that once surrounded the cacao bean. These modern-day chocolate artisans strive to honor the tradition of cacao while also ensuring that the product is made sustainably and fairly. As consumers become more conscious of the origins of their food and the impact of their purchases, the rise of ethical chocolate production reflects a broader cultural shift towards sustainability and social responsibility. This return to high-quality, ethically sourced chocolate serves as a reminder that cacao's ancient legacy is not lost. It has simply evolved, adapting to the modern world while still holding on to elements of its past. Today, when you purchase a bar of artisanal dark chocolate made from carefully harvested cacao beans, you're not just buying a sweet treat, you're participating in a tradition that goes back thousands of years. The artisanal chocolate movement is about more than taste. It's about honoring the legacy of cacao and returning to a more mindful, deliberate relationship with chocolate. In a way, it's like reconnecting with the divine qualities that the Aztecs once saw in the cacao bean. And let's not forget the psychological and emotional power of chocolate. While we may no longer believe that chocolate has the power to directly connect us to the gods, we do recognize the way it affects our mood. There's a reason chocolate is often referred to as a comfort food. It has a unique ability to soothe, to bring pleasure, and to elevate the spirit, just as it once did for the Aztecs. The theobromine and serotonin boosting properties of cacao may play a role in this, but there's also a deep psychological connection to the idea of chocolate as a reward or a moment of indulgence. Just as the Aztecs saw it as a gift from the gods, today we may see it as a gift to ourselves, a way to add a little sweetness to our day. While the divine, spiritual association of chocolate may have faded, the essence of what made it so special still endures. We may no longer use it in sacred ceremonies, but we continue to use it to mark special moments, to elevate our lives, and to bring joy. Chocolate, in its many forms, continues to serve as a symbol of indulgence, love, and celebration. And perhaps, in that sense, it has never truly lost its magic. From the bitter, frothy drink of the Aztecs to the smooth, sweet bars we enjoy today, chocolate has remained a constant in human culture, a link between the past and present, a reminder of our shared love for this remarkable, transformative food. As you finish your chocolate, savoring the richness of the flavor, think about how far this humble cacao bean has traveled, from the sacred rituals of the Aztecs to the candy aisles of your local store. In each bite, you're tasting history, culture, and the shared joy of indulgence that has spanned thousands of years. And while we may no longer see chocolate as the divine gift it once was, it still holds a special place in our hearts, and that's something timeless. As we reach deeper into chocolate's fascinating history, it's hard not to reflect on how its role has shifted from a sacred elixir to the sweet indulgence we now casually enjoy. But what does the future hold for chocolate? In this section, we'll explore the direction chocolate is taking today and how the once sacred cacao bean is being reimagined in the modern world. While we might not be using it to summon the gods or connect with the divine in quite the same way the Aztecs did, chocolate still retains a deeply important place in our culture and economy. As chocolate continues to evolve, one of the biggest changes we're seeing is the growing demand for ethically sourced and sustainably produced cacao. Over the past few decades, a growing number of consumers have become aware of the negative impacts of the cacao industry, particularly when it comes to labor practices and environmental sustainability. Cocoa farming, especially in regions like West Africa, has been linked to child labor, poor wages, and unsustainable agricultural practices. With the chocolate industry being worth billions of dollars, many cacao farmers still live in poverty, and the environmental impact of a large-scale cocoa farming is concerning, with deforestation and soil degradation being significant issues. Enter the fair trade movement. The concept of fair trade focuses on ensuring that farmers are paid fair wages, have access to better working conditions, and are encouraged to adopt sustainable farming methods. Fair trade certified chocolate brands work directly with cacao farmers to ensure they are paid fairly for their beans and that their farms use eco-friendly practices. By choosing to buy fair trade chocolate, consumers can make a positive impact on the lives of cacao farmers and help ensure the long-term sustainability of cacao production. This movement is a modern-day parallel to the sacred reverence the Aztecs had for cacao, albeit with a more earthly focus on equity and responsibility. It's a reminder that we can still honor the cacao bean and the workers who grow it, while embracing its sweet pleasures. There is also a rising interest in bean-to-bar chocolate, where the entire process of making chocolate, from sourcing the beans to crafting the final product, is done by a single company. This trend is bringing us closer to the origins of chocolate, allowing us to appreciate the subtle flavors that different cacao beans offer, much like the Aztecs once did with their carefully sourced cacao. Bean-to-bar producers often work directly with cacao farmers, ensuring high-quality beans and emphasizing ethical practices in the growing, harvesting, and production process. Much like the artisans of the past, these chocolatiers are bringing back a sense of craftsmanship to chocolate making, where every piece tells a story of where the cacao came from and how it was treated. In addition to these ethical concerns, we are also seeing a shift in the ways chocolate is used in modern cuisine. Gourmet chocolate has reached new heights, with chefs experimenting with unique pairings and new forms of chocolate. In high-end restaurants, chocolate is no longer confined to desserts. It is being used in savory dishes as well, from chocolate sauces that complement meats to chocolate-infused cocktails. The boundaries of chocolate's versatility are constantly expanding. These culinary innovations echo the way the Aztecs used chocolate in their ceremonies, where cacao was more than just a treat. It was a symbol of something much more profound. One of the most intriguing trends in modern chocolate is the growing interest in dark chocolate, particularly single origin varieties. Dark chocolate has a complex, rich flavor profile that is gaining popularity among consumers who seek a more sophisticated taste experience. Unlike milk chocolate, which is often sweeter and creamier, dark chocolate has a more intense, sometimes bitter flavor that highlights the natural complexities of the cacao bean itself. Single origin chocolate, which is made from cacao beans sourced from a specific region, allows consumers to experience the unique flavors that different types of cacao can offer. Some cacao beans are fruity, while others have hints of spice or floral notes. This variety is a nod to the sophisticated appreciation the Aztecs had for their cacao and its role in their world. Interestingly, as our tastes for chocolate evolve, so too does our understanding of its health benefits. The Aztecs believed that cacao could heal the body, boost energy, and improve heart health, and modern science has begun to support some of these claims. Research has shown that dark chocolate, in particular, is rich in antioxidants, which can help protect the body from free radical damage. Cacao has also been linked to improving cardiovascular health, and it's even been found to have mood-boosting properties due to its ability to increase serotonin levels in the brain. While we may no longer drink cacao to invoke the favor of the gods, there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that the Aztecs may have been onto something when they considered cacao to be more than just food. Perhaps their reverence for chocolate was not entirely misplaced after all. As chocolate's future unfolds, there's also a growing focus on the environmental impact of cacao production. As mentioned earlier, cacao farming has often been associated with deforestation and unsustainable land practices. However, initiatives like agroforestry, which involves planting cacao alongside other trees and crops, are gaining traction as more sustainable methods of cacao production. These practices help protect biodiversity, prevent soil erosion, and reduce the need for harmful chemical inputs. By integrating cacao into a more diverse farming system, these efforts are helping to preserve the environment and ensure that cacao production can continue for generations to come. It's a reminder that even though chocolate has evolved from its sacred roots, it still carries with it the potential for positive change, both for the people who grow it and for the planet. In conclusion, the future of chocolate looks bright, with a renewed focus on sustainability, ethics, and innovation. From the ethical sourcing of cacao to the exploration of new flavors and uses, chocolate continues to evolve in exciting ways. Yet, at its core, chocolate still retains the magic that the Aztecs once believed it held. It connects us to history, to the earth, and to one another. Whether you're savoring a single origin dark chocolate bar, enjoying a rich chocolate truffle, or simply indulging in a comforting hot chocolate, you're participating in a long tradition that has spanned millennia. Chocolate, in all its forms, continues to bring joy, pleasure, and connection, just as it did for the Aztecs. As we delve deeper into the future of chocolate, it's clear that its evolution is intertwined with both the challenges and opportunities of the modern world. Yet, despite these changes, there is something timeless about chocolate. The connection to indulgence, joy, and comfort remains at the heart of its global appeal, and it's remarkable how chocolate has managed to retain its power to evoke emotions and create shared experiences across cultures and generations. However, as our understanding of chocolate continues to evolve, one must also consider the global challenges that come with its widespread consumption. The chocolate industry faces several important issues that are shaping its future, particularly when it comes to sustainability and ethical concerns. The demand for chocolate continues to rise globally, but this comes at a cost. Many cacao producing regions, particularly in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, are grappling with problems such as deforestation, low wages for farmers, and child labor. The environmental impact of large-scale cacao farming is significant, with unsustainable agricultural practices contributing to soil depletion, biodiversity loss, and carbon emissions. As chocolate becomes more mass-produced, these issues are exacerbated, making it increasingly vital for companies, consumers, and governments to take action to create a more sustainable and ethical chocolate industry. In response to these concerns, several initiatives and certifications have emerged to support more sustainable cacao farming. Fair trade certification, for example, ensures that cacao farmers are paid a fair wage and work under safe conditions. It also promotes environmentally friendly farming practices, such as crop diversification and organic farming, which help to reduce the environmental footprint of cacao production. By choosing chocolate that is fair trade certified, consumers are supporting efforts to improve the lives of cacao farmers and protect the environment. Similarly, the Rainforest Alliance certification emphasizes sustainability by promoting biodiversity-friendly farming methods that help preserve the forests where cacao is grown. While these initiatives are a step in the right direction, they also highlight the need for systemic change in the chocolate industry. The sheer scale of cacao farming and the global demand for chocolate make it challenging to implement large-scale reforms. Still, the growing awareness of the ethical and environmental issues associated with chocolate consumption is leading to increased pressure on companies to adopt more sustainable practices. From big-name brands to small-scale artisanal chocolatiers, many companies are now exploring ways to reduce their carbon footprint, support local cacao farmers, and create more sustainable, traceable supply chains. As a result, ethical sourcing and sustainability have become key selling points in the chocolate industry, reflecting the increasing consumer desire for products that align with their values. But how does this shift towards sustainability relate to the Aztec view of cacao as sacred and divine? In many ways, the modern-day movement to protect the environment and support cacao farmers echoes the Aztecs' respect for cacao as a gift from the gods, something to be treated with reverence and care. The Aztecs saw cacao as a sacred product, one that was not just for consumption, but for ritual and reverence. They believed that cacao had the power to connect them to the divine, and they honored it with rituals and offerings. In today's world, this reverence for cacao is being reflected in the desire to protect the planet that sustains it. As we embrace ethical chocolate practices, we are, in a sense, returning to a more mindful approach to cacao, a practice that mirrors the Aztecs' deep respect for the sacredness of the cacao bean. Moreover, the shift toward sustainability and fair trade also provides an opportunity for chocolate to regain some of its symbolic and cultural significance. Today, cacao is often viewed as a commodity, a product to be mass-produced and consumed quickly. However, by choosing ethically sourced and sustainable chocolate, we are elevating chocolate once again to something special. We are acknowledging its cultural legacy, recognizing its connection to the earth, and supporting the people who grow it. This return to a more conscientious relationship with chocolate can reinstate some of the reverence the Aztecs had for cacao as a symbol of life, health, and divine connection. But there's another aspect to the future of chocolate that has emerged in recent years: the intersection of chocolate and health. While chocolate was once considered a luxury or indulgence, today there's a growing recognition of its potential health benefits, particularly in dark chocolate, rich in antioxidants, fiber, and essential minerals. Dark chocolate has gained popularity as a health food. Studies have shown that consuming moderate amounts of dark chocolate can have several health benefits, including improving heart health, lowering blood pressure, and boosting brain function. The Aztecs, of course, believed that cacao could improve physical health, especially heart health. So in some ways, modern science is beginning to validate their ancient claims. But while dark chocolate may have health benefits, it's important to remember that not all chocolate is created equal. The high sugar content in milk chocolate and many commercially available chocolate bars means that these products still need to be enjoyed in moderation. As consumers become more aware of the health benefits of chocolate, the demand for high-quality, dark chocolate with minimal additives has increased. Chocolatiers are responding to this demand by creating chocolates with higher cacao content and fewer added sugars. Some even boast of using cacao from specific regions known for producing beans with distinct flavors and health benefits. As we look to the future, it seems that chocolate is poised to occupy a more complex role in our lives. While it remains a symbol of indulgence and celebration, it is also becoming a symbol of sustainability, ethical responsibility, and health. The way we consume chocolate is changing, and with that change comes an opportunity to reflect on the deeper meaning of chocolate in our lives. From the Aztecs, who revered it as a divine gift, to the modern-day movement towards ethical chocolate production, chocolate has always been more than just a treat. It's a symbol of connection, both to each other and to the planet. So, as you enjoy your next piece of chocolate, take a moment to reflect on its rich history. Remember that in every bite, you're not only tasting a product of thousands of years of cultural exchange, but you're also participating in a modern-day movement to create a better, more sustainable future for cacao and the people who grow it. The sacredness of chocolate may have evolved, but its power to bring joy, connection, and meaning to our lives remains timeless. As we draw closer to the end of our journey through the history of chocolate, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on its enduring legacy and how it has shaped cultures, communities, and even the way we view indulgence. Chocolate is no longer a sacred offering to the gods, as it was in Aztec society but it still holds a special place in the hearts of people around the world. Whether it's enjoyed as a comforting treat, a symbol of affection, or a luxury indulgence, chocolate continues to evoke emotions and create connections across generations and cultures. Chocolate's journey through time has been a fascinating one. It has evolved from a ritualistic beverage consumed only by the elite to the globally beloved treat we know today. And while its meaning and consumption have transformed, it still carries with it the essence of its origins, a symbol of indulgence, celebration, and connection. Yet, as we continue to consume chocolate in various forms, from chocolate bars to decadent desserts, we can't forget the ancient reverence that the Aztecs once had for this powerful, life-giving substance. When we enjoy chocolate today, we're not just savoring a piece of candy or a sweet treat. We're partaking in a long-standing tradition that spans centuries. We're engaging in a cultural practice that has been passed down through generations, from the Aztecs to the Spanish, from the European aristocracy to the modern-day chocolate industry. And as we indulge in chocolate, we're also contributing to the ongoing story of this remarkable food. It's also worth considering how chocolate has transcended its origins to become something that brings people together. The act of sharing chocolate, whether it's a box of chocolates on Valentine's Day or a chocolate cake at a family gathering, is a universal gesture of connection and care. Chocolate, in its many forms, has become a symbol of love, friendship, and community. Its ability to bring people together is one of the reasons it remains so beloved, even in an age of mass production and commercialization. Moreover, chocolate has a unique ability to spark joy and nostalgia. Think of a childhood memory of enjoying a favorite chocolate treat, or the feeling of unwrapping a chocolate bar after a long day. Chocolate has the power to comfort and uplift us, offering a moment of pleasure and respite. The emotional connection we have with chocolate, whether it's a brief escape from our busy lives or a moment of indulgence, speaks to the enduring appeal of this sweet treat. But beyond the emotional and cultural significance of chocolate, it's also important to consider the role it plays in the modern global economy. The chocolate industry is one of the largest in the world, with billions of dollars spent annually on chocolate products. This massive industry is fueled by the continued demand for chocolate, which shows no signs of slowing down. As the demand for chocolate grows, so too does the need for sustainable practices in the cacao industry. Ethical sourcing, fair trade, and sustainable farming are becoming increasingly important as consumers become more aware of the impact of their choices on the environment and the people who produce cacao. The Aztecs, in their reverence for cacao, believed that the cacao bean was a gift from the gods, something to be respected and cherished. Today, while we may not view chocolate through the lens of spirituality, we can still honor that sacred connection by making more mindful choices about the chocolate we consume. By supporting companies that prioritize fair trade, sustainability, and ethical practices, we can ensure that the legacy of cacao is one that continues to benefit both the people who grow it and the planet that sustains it. Looking ahead, the future of chocolate seems bright, with new innovations and ethical practices emerging in the industry, from bean-to-bar chocolatiers to sustainable cacao farming methods. There is a growing movement toward creating chocolate that is not only delicious, but also responsible and sustainable. As consumers, we have the power to shape the future of chocolate by choosing products that align with our values and support practices that benefit farmers and the environment. So, as we savor our chocolate today, let's remember its rich history and the many ways it has shaped our world. Let's appreciate the tradition, the culture, and the joy that chocolate brings to our lives. And as we look to the future, let's strive to make chocolate a more sustainable and ethical product, one that continues to bring people together while honoring the ancient reverence the Aztecs once had for cacao. In conclusion, chocolate is far more than just a sweet treat. It is a symbol of history, culture, and connection. From its sacred beginnings in Aztec society to its global popularity today, chocolate has played a significant role in shaping our world. And as we continue to enjoy chocolate in its many forms, we can honor the legacy of cacao by supporting ethical and sustainable practices in the industry. Whether you're indulging in a chocolate bar, savoring a piece of dark chocolate, or enjoying a rich chocolate dessert, you're partaking in a tradition that spans centuries. Chocolate is not just food, it's a timeless symbol of joy, indulgence, and the connections we share with others.